business news. The Northwest's most complete, comprehensive, and up-to-the-minute coverage with meteorologist Dave Dahl, sportscaster Larry Burnett, and anchorman Byron Barnett.
Good evening, everyone. Marcia Fleur is on vacation and will be back next weekend. This weekend, the annual summer vacation exodus began in France. As they are every year at this time, the highways in that country were packed. Early this morning, more than 40 children bound for summer camp were killed in a chain collision at a notoriously crowded highway junction near the city of Dijon. Those children were in two buses that were racing each other at 80 miles per hour when they collided on the slick roadway with other vehicles. In all, more than 50 people were killed. It was the worst road accident in French history. A relative of some of the children said the drivers of buses argued before they started the trip. He said they complained about getting started late and were racing at high speeds to pick up time. One of the drivers was killed in the crash. He was trapped along with the children on one of the buses. They couldn't get out and burned to death. They had set out on the trip last night, heading into the heaviest and deadliest traffic weekend of the year, with some 6.5 million motorists competing for road space. And locally, 2 people were seriously injured when their boat exploded on the St. Croix River this afternoon. B.F. Johnston of St. Paul and Sharon Farman of Minneapolis are hospitalized in fair condition tonight. Witnesses said their 36-foot cruiser exploded near the Wisconsin side of the river. It drifted over to a small boat that was anchored nearby and set that boat afire. Both boats were destroyed. The cause of that boat explosion is still under investigation. And 2 people were injured, but not seriously, this afternoon when their single-engine plane crashed in Champlain. Pilot Jack Price and his son were taking off from a private landing when the plane went down. The plane crashed near County Road 14 and 109th around 3 o'clock. In the Middle East tonight, Palestinian guerrillas dug in deeper in West Beirut to prepare for yet another Israeli onslaught. Despite the 8th ceasefire in the 2-month-old war, there are still grave doubts on both sides of any early settlements. As the guerrillas prepare for another attack, the city of Beirut continues to show increasing signs of the beating it is taking. The Israelis did turn on the water taps, but without electricity to work the pumps, only a trickle of water comes out. Typhoid remains a threat. Those who have tried the water, especially the children, have become ill. Still, there's some hope for an end. The Lebanese foreign minister said negotiations to work out the details of a PLO evacuation will begin within 24 hours. And 6,000 PLO guerrillas continue to be trapped by Israeli forces. Hundreds of PLO sympathizers staged a demonstration in London today. The protesters chanted, carried banners and signs condemning Israel's invasion of Lebanon. They called for Israel's immediate withdrawal from that country. But today, Israel said it will continue to fight terrorism and that terrorism should be fought all over the world. Israeli officials have made that statement in reaction to a bombing that injured 7 people in an airport in Munich, West Germany. No one's claimed responsibility for the blast, but police say that it was against the Israeli airline El Al. The bomb was hidden in a suitcase near the passenger counter of El Al Airlines. In Zimbabwe, tanks, troops, and police continued their manhunt for a gang of armed rebels who are holding 6 foreign tourists hostage. The tourists were kidnapped while on a safari a week ago. The kidnappers are demanding the freedom of imprisoned members of the country's opposition party. So far, Prime Minister Robert Mugabe has refused to accept the demands of the rebels. The hostages include 2 Americans, and the kidnappers say they'll be killed along with the others unless their demands are met. The deadline for those demands has passed, but the Zimbabwe government insists there are no signs the hostages are dead. Here at home, the FBI and St. Paul police continue their search for suspects involved in the robbery of the Hubert H. Humphrey Job Corps Center. So far, 1 man has been arrested and charged in connection with the robbery. Carolyn Brookter reports on just how the robbers managed to get away with $6,000 from the center's payroll.
There are no guards to stop you at the door of the Hubert H. Humphrey Job Corps Center before you get in. And that's what robbers apparently were counting on yesterday when they walked in about 8:30 in the morning. The 2 men went straight to the accounting office, pulled a gun, and demanded the center's payroll money. And there was little security guards could do anyway since they were unarmed.
Primarily their purpose is provide security around the perimeter and on the center, so that the Corps members that are here do not go off the center.
The robbers got away through this back door, taking with them $6,800. None of the money has been recovered yet, but one man has been arrested and charged with probable cause in the robbery by St. Paul police. The FBI has also joined the investigation. They believe at least 3 other people could have been involved.
We have a pretty good idea who's involved, but again, we have to put it together.
And as for security, Job Corps officials say the robbery has forced them to take another look. They're not quite certain exactly what measures they will take, but one thing is for sure, it will be a lot tougher to get inside the center than it ever was before. In St. Paul, I'm Carolyn Brookter, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
St. Paul police are also searching for a man who posed as a minister and robbed an elderly couple. The woman said her 82-year-old husband let the pseudo-minister inside. Then he went around the couple's home, blessing closets, drawers, Bibles, and the woman's purse, from which he took $200. When the woman realized what had happened, she first did some, quote, yelling and screaming at her husband for letting the man inside in the first place. Then she called the police. She also asked officers not to release the couple's names or address. And the question being asked in Hollywood these days is, will Steven Spielberg finish his film, The Twilight Zone, in light of the accident that killed 2 children and actor Vic Morrow? We'll get to that story in just a moment. And some Soviet officials touring the Minnesota Zoo today have more than sightseeing in mind. That story when Eyewitness News continues.
Introducing 3 new Grandwiches. The new Seaside Grandwich. The new Swiss Chicken Grandwich. The new Chicken Italiano Grandwich. The Grandwiches. Now there are 10. And if you ever taste a Grandwich, a sandwich will be just a sandwich.
One day, Ruth Wilson accidentally bumped into an old friend. Now, no one was hurt, and Ruth's MSI agent Wes Johnson was on the spot, taking care of everything, even before the police arrived. Now, granted, not everybody has an accident with their insurance agent, so this story's a bit out of the ordinary. But the service isn't, because at MSI Insurance, we're people helping people, and agents like Wes Johnson prove it every day.
The future of Steven Spielberg's film, The Twilight Zone, is in sort of a Twilight Zone itself right now, as investigations continue into the helicopter crash that killed 2 children and actor Vic Morrow. A spokesman from the Warner Brothers studio said today there's a chance filming could continue. The studio and 3 individuals were each fined $5,000 yesterday for allegedly violating California child labor laws. The laws prohibit kids from working late hours and in hazardous conditions. The state charges that the 2 children who were killed were doing just that at the time of the accident. And after weeks of controversy over the Minnesota Zoo director, tonight we have a positive story from the zoo. Today, 3 Soviet officials visited the zoo as part of their 12-day tour through the United States. The men are looking at the best facilities this country has to offer. But as Pat Milan reports, the Soviets are involved in some wheeling and dealing over rare species of animals.
2 of the men are directors of Russia's more prominent zoos. The third is an officer of the Ministry of Natural Resources. On their second day in the Twin Cities, the group was escorted through the Minnesota Zoo for a look at these tiger cubs that got so much publicity back when they were born in May. Now at 25 or more pounds each, the cubs represent some important work that the Russians were interested in seeing. Part of the interest stems from the fact that the father of these cubs was born in the Moscow Zoo, before being moved to Berlin and now Minnesota. The 3 men have already been through one of America's oldest zoos, the Bronx, as well as the Catskills facility outside New York City. They found American zoos to be bigger and in some cases better equipped than the older zoos in the USSR.
We came on a special program to check the status and the breeding success of the United States zoos with Przewalski's horses.
The Przewalski species, a Mongolian horse, is what the Minnesota Zoo would love to get in its hands. The Mongolians are the ancestors to all breeds of horses, but they have never been domesticated. Of the 70 known to be in America, the Minnesota Zoo has 17, but they'd like one with the Russian bloodlines to add to that collection. And that is what these visits are really all about, trading. Each zoo has something another might want. And in the walk around this zoo today, you could hear the directors bringing up the prospect of deals that would make any zoologist envious of a chance to talk with the Russians. Obviously, these face-to-face visits make it easier for the officials to talk trades when it comes to that point a little later down the road. And right now, the Fish and Wildlife Service says it's already trying to get more Russian tigers into American zoos, and the Minnesota Zoo falls into those plans. Pat Milan, Channel 5 Eyewitness News in Apple Valley.
Over the long 4th of July holiday weekend, the Metropolitan Police Departments managed to confiscate over $100,000 worth of fireworks. Today in Burnsville, the departments gathered all of those firecrackers, smoke bombs, Roman candles, and other explosives and put them into this huge gravel pit. Then they ignited a series of fires and let the show begin after about a minute and a half of waiting.
We had to take it all out of the cases and put it in a pile. Then we take the cases, put them on top, put the aerial stuff on the bottom, the heavier stuff on top, soak it in fuel oil, and then we get the results we had here.
By the way, the explosives and fires burned on through the morning, and when it was all over, almost 300 cases of fireworks had been destroyed. This was the first time all the confiscated fireworks from the entire metro area had been detonated at one time. And still coming up on Eyewitness News tonight, the portrait of an artist whose canvas is a hot air balloon. This man is the only artist in the world who paints pictures on hot air balloons. But before we get to that, we'll check in with Dave Dahl for his predictions about tomorrow's weather.
Household Finance is backing Harlow Puce.
You get out there and you look and you can't see nothing but the contour of the ground. And it's the solitude, just something about it.
If you're working for a better life like Harlow Puce, you're the person we want to back at Household Finance with personal loans up to $5,000 or more.
We're here today giving folks a chance, backing you all the way. Household Finance.
Yes, I'm sick and tired. Run him out of town on that.
Evening, ladies. You know, there are some folks who just don't enjoy a good beer. Guess they never tried this. Jacob Best Premium Light. It's a full-flavored premium beer brewed light. Got that love for life. Guess that's why they named it after me. Sounds like the party's breaking up.
There he is!
When you're traveling light, go with the best.
Jacob Best Premium Light, full-flavored brewed light for today.
Kind of hard to escape the heat today, even in the studio here. It's
warm tonight, really warm. And we actually did have a very nice high today, but we did have that smoke that was covering much of the Twin Cities area. A lot of people thought it was actually clouds, but there wasn't much moisture in that cloud of smoke that came over the Twin Cities area. This is what the satellite looked like from 23,000 miles up earlier this morning. See that milky white area across the northern half of the state? Watch this lapse roll ahead. You're going to see that milky white area actually cover all the state of Minnesota. And it's coming from some fairly strong forest fires that are occurring right now in the south central part of Canada. And that will continue to give us a smoky sky probably right on through tomorrow. Currently here in the Twin Cities, 74 degrees. The dew point has climbed up to 64, making it seem fairly uncomfortable now. Relative humidity at 71%, and that barometer is holding steady at 29.87 inches. Well, the low this morning was a fairly chilly 59 degrees, and we haven't had any shower activity, and those lawns are getting drier around the Twin Cities. But today's high rebounded back up to 89 degrees. It was quite a bit warmer, though, out to the west of us. They had 90s covering almost all of South Dakota. From there, it stretched right out through the western half of the country. That warm air is continuing to filter northeastward. One of the reasons is a complex of high-pressure systems. Right now, across the national map, we see two areas of high pressure, one located to the south of us and another one that's sitting right over the central part of the Rocky Mountain states. That's what's starting to move some of that warm air towards us. As those highs gradually shift onto the east, they're pushing some very wet weather right up through the east coast. They had 1.5 feet of water standing on many of the streets in portions of western Virginia. And all that rain activity continued down through the South Meridian, Mississippi today. Had 2.5 inches of rain and a very heavy thunderstorm. That is not going to be affecting us. What we are expecting is this high pressure system to continue to push on to the east and southeast. But there was quite a bit of rain around the country. If you take all the radars, this is what you get. The national radar map showing all that wet weather up through the east coast. But with high pressure through the midsection of the country, we're not seeing too much rain. We'll confirm that with KSTP color radar right now, 143 miles out. not seeing any shower activity of any significance across the southern two-thirds of Minnesota as well as western Wisconsin. But there are a few clouds that we have to deal with, and maybe by tomorrow morning, that cool front that's lying right across northern Minnesota will be right through the central part of the state, so that'll probably increase our clouds here in the Twin Cities, and with that, we might have a slight chance of a shower or a thunderstorm. But temperatures are still very, very uncomfortable. We'll have mainly 70s right now across most of the 5-state area, even a few 80s popping up in South Dakota. Sioux Falls right now, 85 degrees, very, very uncomfortable. So the next 24 hours, everything you've been wanting. Tomorrow's weather, well, this high-pressure system in the midsection of the country is going to drop southward. And that cool front right now through the northern part of the state will probably lie right through the central part of Minnesota tomorrow. That will increase our chance of showers, but we're going to stay on the warm side of that front. Tomorrow's high should be in the 90s, pushing all the way up into southwestern Minnesota. Very close to the Twin Cities. We could have a 90 here and there. 100s, though, out in the central part of South Dakota, right down through Nebraska. And that area of warm air is headed our way. The KSTP forecast in detail is calling for partly cloudy, still smoky and hazy skies tonight. 62 to 68 for overnight lows, southwest winds at 5 to 10. For tomorrow, partly cloudy. It'll seem a little bit more cloudy, especially in the morning with that smoke around. Warm temperatures, though, and a slight chance of a morning and a late afternoon and evening thunderstorm. Highs tomorrow near 90. South winds up to 15. For tomorrow night, partly cloudy, still rather warm. Lows somewhere around 70. And then on into Monday, partly sunny. Few more clouds and a better chance for showers and thunderstorms. Highs on Monday could go into the mid-90s. That chance of rain is set at 20% late tonight, tomorrow, and 30% for Monday. And the extended outlook continues that chance of showers Tuesday, still staying in the warm 80s all the way through the week.
Hot one, eh?
Yeah.
You know, I watched that sunset, and it was kind of pretty looking through the haze and all.
That's right, just a ball of orange out there. It's pretty
caused by smoke.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave, thanks. In sports, it looks like Viking rookie Darren Nelson has come to camp, and Ted Brown may be there too. We'll have Larry Burnett with sports next, right after this.
Heileman's Special Export. This is the beer you've been waiting for. Slow brewed with sparkling pure spring water and European hops in an old world way called krausening to deliver a distinctive European taste. Heileman's Special Export. Unlike any other American beer, this is the beer you've been waiting for. You can travel the world over and never find a better beer.
Chrysler's LeBaron Series, the only full line of cars that combines front-wheel drive, high mileage, and luxury. Now this elegant town and country, with room and luxury that's functional. The LeBaron Convertible, the ultimate luxury. And now new LeBarons come with 5 years or 50,000 miles of protection on the engine and powertrain, protection against outer body rust-through, and free scheduled maintenance. Chrysler's LeBaron Series, my new car.
Yesterday, Mom comes over and says the house smells. She tells Jason he'll get gopher teeth if he keeps sucking his thumb. Then she says, "You look terrible. You should relax." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So, last night I called my sister in Tulsa and cried for 5 minutes and laughed for 5 minutes.
A long-distance visit with someone special. It costs so little. 10 minutes almost anywhere in the country under $3.
It's nice to get away for a while.
A sigh of relief in the Viking camp.
If they could just get Ron Yeri in camp, they'd have the whole complement of the team there, and they do pretty well. I told you we'd have more at 10, and we got more on Teddy Brown. That mystery of a disappearing Teddy Brown is somewhat solved tonight. Brown attended a morning meeting at the Vikings training camp today, then skipped both the morning and afternoon workouts in what Bud Grant called unexcused absences. Well, Vikings general manager Mike Lynn drove to Mankato and talked with Brown today. Tonight, Lynn told me that Brown had personal problems, had been in discussions with his accountant, and would be back at practice tomorrow. No word yet on whether or not Brown will be fined for those absences. One man who was in camp today was running back Darren Nelson. Nelson was 2 days late for training camp, but today he was not subjected to those torturous grass drills, which are normally used to punish late arrivals. Well, yesterday he signed a contract reportedly for $800,000, and today Darren Nelson went to work.
Thanks.
The kids knew this number 20 was the guy they couldn't get yesterday, but could get today. Something about a contract, they thought, and a whole lot of money. So he was 2 days late. He was there, and he was the Vikings' #1 draft pick. He was wearing the purple, so they had come to see his stuff. Well, Darren Nelson did not overwhelm in his first official Viking workout, but he didn't disappoint either. He showed the quickness and the good hands, which the Vikings hope to put to good use this season. And he showed a business-as-usual attitude towards his first day in the National Football League.
It was a little slower pacing than I'm used to, really, coming from college to professional level, but there was just as much learning taking place. I've caught up with everybody. I only missed one day, really, so as far as catching up, that wasn't really a problem.
Day one as a Minnesota Viking was pretty much business as usual for Darren Nelson. He did a lot of watching, he did a lot of listening, and when he got his chances, he performed.
We're in a learning stage of our camp now, and Darren falls right into that. The things that we're doing now are a lot of the things we covered in mini camp, so he's not that far behind.
So he really hasn't lost a lot by missing a day and a half from
Not at all. I'm sure you'll see him, take his turn and do it as well as anybody at this point.
Nelson is in excellent shape, and he looked good today. He didn't catch everything, but then who does? And who else has gone through the plane trip, the contract, and the readjustment, which Nelson has undergone in the past day and a half? Nelson is confident he'll hold his own with the Minnesota Vikings, and he's glad to have the contract behind him and the NFL in front of him.
It feels really good because I'm a football player. I'm not a businessman, really, and just to get that part over with was really just a great load off my mind, really. It's just one less thing to worry about, and all I have to worry about is learning the offense and just relaxing around the veterans and things like that.
More football. The high school all-star football game is in the second half now at Parade Stadium in Minneapolis, and the home Metro team has a slight lead on the Outstate squad, but Outstate scored first in the second quarter. Running back Shul Schwanke of Goodhue carried the ball the final 2 yards of the only successful drive in the first part. The Outstaters got some points on the board, but only 6 of them early. They missed the point after. But Metro got it all back on this interception coming up by defensive end Ivan Zubar. He's one of the players Coach Joe Salem has ticketed for the University of Minnesota this fall. Zubar ran the ball back 38 yards, battled the last few yards for the tying touchdown. Metro made the extra point, and now Metro leads that game in the second half. The score 21-12. Well, the Minnesota Twins were close, but no cigar this afternoon in Oakland. The A's got 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th to beat Minnesota 3-2. The Twins already had 1 run in when Kent Hrbek stepped in the 6th. Hrbek hit a line drive homer to left. Line drives are typical of Herbek's home run style, but he'll take this one. It's the first homer he's hit since the one he nailed in Detroit way back on July 5th, his 18th homer of the year. But in the 8th, the bases were loaded with the A's when Mike Heath stepped in against Terry Felton, and he hit this single up the middle. That scored 2 runs and gave Oakland a 3-2 win. Minnesota hasn't won at Oakland in this series, and they'll get one more chance tomorrow. Here's the American League scoreboard now. The A's beat the Twins. Toronto a shutout winner over Detroit. Chicago is beating Boston. If Chicago goes on to win, it will be Boston tied with Milwaukee for that lead in the American League East. The Yankees are losing in the 7th. Kansas City a winner over Baltimore tonight. In the 3rd, Seattle and California are scoreless. And there's why. Milwaukee a winner tonight over Cleveland. That tightens up that AL East race. Before we leave that game, you got to see this coming up. The Brewers are trailing Cleveland 2-0. Now stick with me. They're in the 1st inning, but now Milwaukee has Robin Yount and Gorman Thomas on base and Ben Ogilvie at the plate. Now watch this. Ogilvie lines sharply to second, and he starts a comedy of errors. Larry Milbourne throws widely to Mike Hargrove at first, no out there. Hargrove throws home as Robin Yount drives in. Well, that's wild too. Catcher Chris Bando chases the ball down and fires to third, trying to catch Thomas. Well, no, the ball heads into center field, and Thomas comes home. And Milwaukee may not have had today's win handed to them, but a few things were certainly thrown their way. National League scores look like this. L.A. shutout winner over Atlanta. San Diego and Cincinnati on their way to a split tonight. Same thing for San Francisco and Houston. Philadelphia won tonight, but Manny Trio committed an error. Now, that's a big deal because he won 89 straight games without one. St. Louis a winner over Montreal tonight, and New York 9-4 over Pittsburgh. Bill Israelson has a 1-shot lead going into tomorrow's final round of the National Car Open Golf Tournament. Israelson shot a 5-under par 67 at Bunker Hill in Coon Rapids to overtake yesterday's leader Mike Morley by 1 shot. In shooting that 67, Israelson might have established a new competition record for a single round, but the man he was paired with, Dave Tentis of Delwood Hills, burned things up with a 66, including a sizzling 30 on the back 9. They'll play the final round in that Coon Rapids tournament tomorrow afternoon. Up in Israelson's hometown, Bemidji, University of Minnesota golfer Nancy Harris upset Lisa Kluver 2-up. She wins the women's title in the Birchmont Invitational Tournament. Tony Grimes of Phoenix defeated Greg Morrow of Boston for the men's title. And on the men's tour, the lead in the Canadian Open belongs to Bruce Lietzke. Lietzke shot his 3rd straight 68 today to take a 2-shot lead with a 3-round total of 204. That's 9 strokes under par. Tommy Valentine has been on the tour for half a dozen years, and he hasn't won yet. He's in second place at 206. He also shot 68 thanks to a string of 5 straight birdies on the front 9. On the women's tour, Sally Little rebounded from a rocky back 9 with a near eagle on the 18th hole. She holds her lead in the LPGA Classic at Denver. Little has a 2-shot edge over Patty Sheehan, Pat Bradley, and Sandra Haney heading into tomorrow's final. And WBC and lightweight champ Alexis Arguello jumped to the junior welterweight division today and won an impressive knockout victory over Kevin Rooney. Arguello handed Rooney only the 2nd loss of his pro career, and a good left-right combination did the trick here in the 2nd round. Rooney was simply no match for Arguello, whose record is now 76-4. Today's win sets up a fall showdown for Arguello with WBA junior welterweight champ Aaron Pryor. If Arguello wins, he will be the first man in boxing history to win titles in 4 separate weight divisions. That's a look at sports. Teddy Brown is back, and Darren Nelson is in camp.
I was just looking at that, that knockout. That was quite a slug.
That was a pretty good right hand, huh?
Okay, sure was. Thanks, Larry. Finally, we come to Jason Davis, who's been on the road again. You know, that's his job. And for tonight's story, Jason didn't have to travel very far. He went to Minnetonka, where he found an artist who is one of a kind.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again.
Charlie Market is a former billboard painter. Now he's a unique artist, dealing with some of the largest canvases in the world.
This material encompasses over 9,000 square feet. The image that we're creating is over 60 foot in height, in 50 foot in width.
Charlie is the only person he knows that paints hot air balloons. Using special dyes with a secret formula, he creates 3-dimensional images on a massive scale.
I fell in love with this type of canvas because the images are just so large and really fun to work with. They're difficult, but it's quite a challenge. Would you like to ride in my beautiful balloon? Would you like to glide in my beautiful balloon? We could float among the stars together, you and I. Or we can fly. After you've worked for months on a project, the final outcome can only be seen when the balloon is finally inflated. It's like giving birth to a newborn babe.
Charlie Market's ambition is to paint and fly a balloon that looks something like that in the bicentennial celebrations of hot air ballooning in Paris next year. If he's successful, it'll be the first time anyone has painted a balloon that looks like that in nearly 200 years. Jason Davis on the road again in Minnetonka.
Jason will go anywhere for a story. I think he just wanted a free balloon ride myself. Well, that's it for us tonight. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Good night.
KSTP TV, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Channel 5.